Well, it's October 25th. And,
October 25th.
Did something pretty big today.
Yeah, it's bittersweet, man. I mean, Slingshot has been something we've talked about for, I mean, what, five plus years, maybe. It's just, it's unreal, really, to think that I could put a buck of this caliber on the ground, and we've done it.
It's unreal that he's been pretty much that caliber since you've known about him.
Pretty much, yeah. He pretty much hasn't changed a whole lot. I mean, he's always had a slingshot, except for last year. He was clean. Well, he did have a little bit. I think it got broken off. But he had, he always had the one slingshot, which is why I named it Split G2.
So at least for the last 3 years, he's been over 170, I would say.
I would say over 170.
And this is the first year that he actually threw 3 splits.
Yeah, he's pretty much stayed an 11-pointer throughout the time that I've known of him. We're not sure how old he is, but
I mean, he's got to be 9.5 or 10.5 because you've seen him in what, 2016?
2016. I'm gonna have to go back and look at some trail camera pictures to be certain.
But he was fully mature then, and that was 5 years ago.
He was fully mature then, and they say these deer go downhill after a certain age, and
he didn't.
Every buck's different, I guess. As far as what they do, but to think that he would have done, his rack would have done what it did this year was just unbelievable. I mean, I think at one point he may have been a little bit wider. I would say
his frame was probably bigger, and what was it?
19 was probably the biggest frame that he had, but
score-wise, I think he scores more now than he ever did.
I think probably more now than he ever did.
So tell us, like I said, it's October 25th. Tell us what happened today.
Well, last night I was talking with you, and we both had agreed on a stand to hunt. And when I woke up this morning, I checked my Spartan camera, and I had a picture of Slingshot on there. And I had no intentions of going after Slingshot because I hadn't really seen him much all day, all night.
Well, historically, he never really showed up on your property until like middle of the rut.
Historically, I'd get a picture of him here and there, maybe middle of October, but it would be maybe 1 or 2 here.
And then like November 13th, around that time frame.
It seemed like his peak time was probably Veterans Day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what we had talked about is Veterans Day. I'm going to take my vacation time the whole week of Veterans Day. That's when I've got him in daylight multiple years, and we had this deer down. I mean, we had him patterned, and he was just doing what he should have done to survive. And this morning, unfortunately for him, he did everything right.
So walk us through from the time you woke up this morning.
So like I said, I got up, I got out of the shower, I checked my trail camera pictures, saw that he had went onto the property in the middle of the night, roughly 1 o'clock in the morning. And historically, he's usually not even stayed on the property for very long.
You always catch him going onto your property and then coming off your property.
And usually, I mean, we've had him right about dark coming, going to the property. But usually 3 o'clock in the morning, he's gone. He's going back to his bed.
Catch him going back.
Catch him going back.
So today, you checked your camera and you never got a picture of him going back.
Never got a picture of him going back. So we had talked about hunting the stand that I was going to hunt this morning, and on my way in, I had this gut instinct that he's going to come back through, and he's going to come back through right about daylight. That was my intentions. That's what I had thought. So I'm driving in, and I get to the road where I park, and I get out, and it takes me 5 minutes or so to get ready, So I start walking, and as I'm walking, this deer, I look over, and there's, I would say, 9-10 deer out in the field that I could see.
And it was dark.
And it was dark, but enough to where I could see, because it was about, I want to say 6:30ish or so whenever I got there. I was running just a little bit late. I kind of overslept a little bit, honestly, which is good. So I'm walking in, I get 60 yards from the car, and I see these deer. I instantly freeze, and I'm standing there for a few seconds, and my only thought was, get down. So I get down, and there is some weeds about 2.5, 3 foot tall growing along the edge of this cornfield, this cut cornfield. And so I take my backpack off, I grab my bow, and I army crawl about 10 feet to the edge of this cornfield. It's like a ditch, right? So I get down in this ditch, and I'm watching these deer through my binoculars for a long time. And so
at this point, do you know that one of them is him?
So the closest deer to me at that point, whenever I looked through the binoculars, I could tell, initially that he had a big body, but I couldn't really make him out. So I'm sitting there and I'm scanning the field, I'm looking, and finally it's starting to get light enough to where I could see, and I'm like, there's 3 bucks in the field. And Slingshot stood out way over these other 2. The other buck, one of the other bucks that was with him was probably a 3-year-old or something like that. The other buck was mature. He was a big buck. But it was kind of funny because you had the little buck over here, Slingshot, and then the big buck over here, and they're all just kind of meandering around out there eating in the field. And there's does all around them too. And so I don't know that they had seen me at that point, which I don't know how they could have, because they had to have been in the field when I pulled up in my car, right? So, and I kind of, when I pulled in, I kind of did a little swerve around to shine my lights to see if I see any deer, and I didn't see any deer. So maybe they were out in the middle of the field kind of just, making their way back. So at that point, it's starting to get pretty light out, and I can physically see this is Slingshot. I've been looking at this deer for so long that it's just unbelievable.
Oh yeah, there's no question.
So there's no question it's Slingshot. So then at this point, he's kind of facing to the south, like he's going to go away from me. And so I'm just sitting there.
And how far is he from you at this time?
At this point, he's probably, I would say, 50 to 60 yards. So, and I'm watching him through my binoculars, and a little bit after that, the deer start kind of getting, like, I think they knew something was up type of thing. Well, he's not moving at that point. He actually turns and faces me head on. And, I mean, he's just looking my way.
But you actually took a picture.
I actually took a picture, and I actually took a video, which we'll see what that looks like later. But I took a video, I took a picture, and...
Which, that's the unfortunate thing. The circumstances, you couldn't actually film the shot.
Yes, I couldn't film the shot.
But, I mean, at that point, you got to do what you have to do. It's a once-in-a-lifetime.
Yeah, so at this point, what I'm thinking is this is the only opportunity that I'm going to have at this buck.
Ever possible.
Who would ever think that I'm on the ground laying on my belly, at this point. So I'm still watching him through the binoculars. And then, like I said, I slipped in a video, a picture, and then I'm looking through the binoculars again. Well, then all of a sudden, he puts his head down and he starts feeding. Well, then he pops his head up and he's coming. He's walking to me. He gets, I'm going to say 20 to 30 yards. I tried to range him, but it was so windy that the weeds in front of me was picking up, and the last number that I saw was 28 yards. So at this point, he's still facing me dead on. So then finally, I'm watching him, and he turns. And when he turns, it's now or never. The instinct kicks in. It's now or never. So
draw back.
So I draw back, and I pop up onto the one knee, and I put my 30-yard pin on him, and I shoot. And when I shoot, my arrow kind of moves a little bit because it was windy, right?
Yeah.
But it's still, whenever it hit him, I thought, I'm there.
Felt good about it.
I felt really good about it.
So then you called me.
So then I called you, and right as I called you, I was kind of scanning the field and I saw his antlers sticking up in the cut corn. And so there he is. He's right. He went about 60 yards after I shot him. He bedded down in the corn. So I called you.
And I was on my way home from work.
You're on your way home from work, which it took you about roughly an hour or so by the time you went and got the camera.
From the time you called me, yeah, probably about an hour.
And then you got out there. I was shaking uncontrollably. I mean, this is just unbelievable.
I was shaking driving home from work, and I wasn't even there when this
happened. And
I
mean, you've known about this deer ever since I've known about him, pretty much. And so you've got history with him as well, because you've seen the pictures, the trail camera photos. You've heard the stories. I actually missed this buck a couple of years ago with my bow. I shot over his back at 30 yards. I had a single pin sight. And
hundreds of pictures and videos.
I mean, I have videos, pictures. I have my brother-in-law actually had a video of him chasing a doe during the rut last year.
Surprisingly, we've never found his sheds.
We never found his sheds, and historically on my property, you know this, don't have very good luck finding sheds. It's just very thick.
Well, and you don't have a whole lot of late season food, which...
Yeah, that's the thing. And so this year I tried to change that by putting in the Real World Products Deadly Dozen, and I put this food plot in just so that I could kill this buck. Mm-hmm. And pretty much all the pictures I had of him this year, minus a few, were in the food plot. So I was on my way to the food plot, and that's when all this transpired. Had I made it to the food plot and gotten the stand with where this deer was, he would have been downwind of me. He would have winded me.
I mean, it all just worked out perfectly.
It all just worked out perfectly because I had the wind the entire day, even after the shot. So let's get into...
So I show up and we go to where you hit him, and there's blood everywhere.
Blood everywhere.
Blood looks great. There was a little bit of white hair on the ground, which made me nervous.
Yeah,
But you felt confident about the shot, so we were going to go with it because we had good blood.
Yep.
So we blood trailed him easily. We had no problem finding blood the whole way. Into the timber where he went in.
Yep.
And we got in, and we were finding pools of blood where he'd stopped and stood. I don't think he bedded in any of them spots.
Well, once we found the arrow, that's when the blood picked up, and the arrow was soaked almost 3/4 of the way.
So, yeah, you didn't get a full pass through, but you made enough penetration that you got through the full body cavity.
Yes.
But we were finding good blood all the way through the timber, and then, we weren't 50, 60 yards in.
Yeah, because we saw the initial spot where I told you I saw him bedded down in the field with his rack up, and we found that initial spot where he had stopped. And then somewhere along me talking on the phone to you, I lost track of watching the deer to see what he was doing, and he snuck into the timber on us.
But, so once we got in the timber, we got in probably, 50, 60 yards when we seen him?
Yeah, 50, 60 yards, and he was bedded up against a tree.
Yeah. You might have been able to get a shot, but...
I might have been able to, but maybe not. So he takes off from that point, and we follow... Well, yeah, I should go back there.
He took off, and I saw him get out of his bed, and he was looking like he was hurt real bad. He wasn't busting out of his bed. And unfortunately, I didn't get any of this on camera because it happened so fast. He kind of caught us by surprise because I was looking for a dead deer. And he seen us about the same time we seen him. So he gets out of his bed, and I'm thinking we'll go up, see if we have blood coming out of the bed.
Yep.
And kind of decide what we want to do from there. So we go up to the bed, and we got good blood coming out of the bed. And
great blood.
We walk just a few yards farther, and we can see him already bedded down, maybe
30, 40 yards.
40 yards from his first bed that we jumped him out of.
Yep.
So we just hunker down and watch him, because in my mind, he's hurt bad if he's bedding that fast, after we just bumped him.
Yeah, and he saw us too. He had to have seen us because we were just following blood. I mean, I was confident in the shot. I thought we were going to find him, within 50, 60 yards, just laying there with the blood that we had saw.
So he beds down again. We sit there hunkered down watching him through the binoculars and through the camera for like almost an hour probably.
It was probably almost an hour.
And we were debating whether or not to try to slip in and get another shot on him or just back out and give him time. Which at the time, I voted for backing out. You were kind of worried about him getting up again and clotting up.
I was kind of worried about him getting up and clotting up, but I seen the way he was acting. I wanted to put him out of his misery, you know.
So you belly crawl up to him.
So I belly crawl up to him and I get within, I'm gonna say, 10 yards, maybe less.
And it was thick in there.
It was super thick in there, and he gets up, and I don't have a shot.
He gets up, and we hate to say it, but this is just part of hunting. Your first shot kind of cut his belly. You almost just zippered him.
It kind of, and from the angle, what it had kind of done is it got him through his belly, and I think the arrow, I didn't see anything that told me otherwise, but it looked like the arrow had went into his cavity, you know, enough.
But, I mean, he was going to die. There's no question about it. But what basically happened was you cut his belly, and we didn't know it until the second time he got up.
Yes.
But his guts were basically hanging out of him, almost to the ground. And at that point, you know, we went against everything that we would normally do because
absolutely
we wanted to do what was best for the deer. We did not want him to suffer, and I was afraid that honestly coyotes would eat him alive.
That's all I could think about at that moment was I owe it to this animal, you know, to put him out of his misery. I've got so much history, not even just him, just any other animal.
Right.
Normally, when you bump a deer like that, you should back out and wait. And the way that he was moving and the way he was acting, he was hurt really bad.
He was hurt bad, but
he was gonna die.
I don't think he was gonna die super fast.
Not super fast.
So, like I said, we did what we had to do for the deer. So we kept pushing him and ended up bumping him, two more times?
2 more times, and the last time that we had bumped him, I mean, he was you could tell, I mean, you were behind me quite a ways.
And he was never going farther than 40, 50 yards between beds.
No.
So, I mean,
yeah.
So we felt confident we could keep on him until we could finally get another arrow in him.
That I was just trying to get to a point to where I could get a good ethical shot on him and put him out of his misery, you know, and keep this from dragging on any longer for the sake of the animal.
So, long story short, we bumped him a couple more times, and you're finally able to get up on him.
So he finally beds down in some thick CRP, and we were able to, I mean, I was 5 yards or less from him when I finally shot him, and that was the end of it.
Yep. So, I mean, what was going through your head at that time?
At the time whenever I shot this deer, I mean, I had so many emotions balled up. I've been through a lot in the last few years, and I mean, it's getting to me now. I mean, it's just, you put so much into doing this, you know, it's a passion, you know, and your family sticks with you, and I mean, it's just vacation time. You know, your family would love to spend time with you, you know, on vacation, and you use your vacation for hunting, and they stand by your side, you know.
And these deer almost become family.
They do, and so whenever he finally expired, it was very sad because I've had so much history with this deer, and I mean, it's just bittersweet. You know, it's bittersweet, and you know, it's just like, well, what am I going to do now? You know, I've been chasing this deer for so long, and it's here, and I never would have thought in a million years that this buck would be of this caliber. I mean,
that you'd be standing over
him. Or that I'd be standing over him. I would have thought, you know, somebody else shot him and I seen it, and
or he just
you know,
disappears.
Or he disappears, dies of old age, you know, because I'm pretty serious when I say this deer he's 10 years old.
Which we're gonna send the teeth off and find out for sure how old he is.
Yep. We're gonna send the teeth off, and I'm telling you, he's gonna be very old.
Well, what did he end up scoring?
191 and 5/8.
That's unbelievable, man.
And I mean, we don't care much about the score. I mean, everybody asks you what the score is.
Well, we just want to know most because we've looked at so many trail camera pictures that it's like we're trying to guess what he would score the whole time.
Yep.
And so just out of our own curiosity, but a deer like this, score means absolutely nothing.
No, there's just so much more to take out of it. I mean, it's just everything that led up to the point of getting him.
You've ate your tag for the last 3 years.
Holding
out for this buck.
I've only been hunting this buck, and I've only been hunting this buck with a bow. I have not gun hunted since 2018-19 season, and we talked about it, and I said I want to kill him with a bow. It'll be, I mean, that's something to get. You have to get close to him. Had I have ever thought that I was going to shoot him from the ground, and I mean, it's unbelievable. It really is.
Well, you were meant to kill him because everything worked out absolutely perfect.
Absolutely. I mean, big shout out to Horny Deer Scents. I've got a lot of pictures of him and scrapes with their Horny Deer Scents. Bucks love the stud finder. If you guys haven't tried it out, you guys need to try out Horny Deer Scents.
Did you use the D-Harmony at all this year?
I did use the D-Harmony. I just started using it this past week, and I started putting it in the scrapes.
And he was hitting all them scrapes on,
He was hitting all the scrapes. I actually put up, and you'll see in the pictures.
And that's I think that's basically what he was doing. When he'd come on your property, he'd run that scrape line, and then check a couple spots, and then circle back and back to his bedding area.
He was checking those scrapes, and he was in and out. It was like an hour to 3 hours, then he's gone.
And you can see in the pictures, he's on them scrapes almost at least every other night.
Yeah, so the newest location that I put up, it's been a couple weeks ago. I actually went out and did some scouting, and I'm like trying to think of everything that I can figure out on this deer because we've got him patterned. He does the same thing every year. The pictures, the dates, I mean, you'll see this in the photos.
And it seems like almost every year he would mess up 1 or 2 days. Daylight on your property.
And it was always right around Veterans Day, which is one of my favorite days to hunt. I saw a lot of good deer on Veterans Day. And so, that, like I said, that's what I was banking on this year, But the new scrape that I put up, I went in there, put the scrape up, or I went in and found the scrape, and I put a Spartan camera on it. I sprayed some Horny Deer Scent stud finder in the scrape, and I'm wanting to say I don't think it was that night. I think it was actually the next day, and I hadn't gotten any pictures of this deer yet this year. I don't believe. We'll have to go back and look. But if it was, it might have been 1 or 2. But this deer is in there, and my jaw dropped when I saw this, and I sent the photos to you, you were just like, I can't believe that he got bigger.
Yeah.
And he put on a show in the scrape. I mean, we got some good pictures of him. We got to see every bit of him, and then he disappeared for a couple days, and then he regularly just stayed on that pattern. That nighttime, he was coming in.
He was basically
midnight,
just nocturnal on your property.
He was nocturnal on my property, which I don't know. I mean, wherever his core area was, we kind of have an idea where that was, but I mean, he was always 3, maybe 4 pictures in daylight in the last 3 years. Yeah, probably. I mean, it was very rare to get a daylight picture of this buck, and when I did,
and that's why I think you didn't really ever expect to kill him.
Right, and I had that in the back of my mind that, wherever his core area is, if there's somebody close to that, and they're very well maybe people that have seen this buck, have pictures, or maybe they were hunting this buck as well. And I mean, it's unbelievable to think that, he was so nocturnal that.
Well, I mean, that's how he lived to be as old as he did. I mean,
and he was doing, as a mature buck, he was doing everything right that he should have. He had the wind on every stand on the property from where he was at that time of day, because he slipped up by being there a little bit longer. Well, he was out in the field with all these deer, socializing, and
whatever it was,
it just happened to be that I chose to go to that stand, but I didn't make it to the stand. Luckily, I saw him. If I'd have kept on going, we wouldn't be talking about this right now.
You would probably never even have known he was there.
I probably would have never even known that he was there. I would have been sitting there tonight going, dude, he never came back. I don't have any pictures of him. But, I mean, it's just truly incredible, and I'm so thankful.
I couldn't be happier for you. You deserve it.
It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and like we say, practice, patience, and perseverance. And that's what it takes. You have to be dedicated to hunt animals like this. It's not...
Well, to hunt an individual
buck.
You have to be willing to eat your tag.
Oh, yeah. And it's
not easy to do.
And you've had this happen on several occasions that you've been hunting great deer, and then you see a picture of it, and you're like, now I got to go after a different buck, and it's heartbreaking because... and it's heartbreaking for anybody that has pictures. I'm sure there's people out there that have pictures of this buck, and they're going to be heartbroken.
That's wild deer, though, man.
Yes, it is.
They cross property lines, and
yep, it's not anyone's deer. You're hunting that animal, and it's just, I can't say that I'm smarter than that buck, because he definitely was very smart, and that's why he lived.
You were in the right place at the right time.
I was in the right place at the right time,
and you made it count.
I made it count. Yep.
Well, congratulations, man. Now it's on to find the next one.
On to the next one.